Y'all planning for this?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Perfect RIA podcast. I'm Matthew Jarvis, joining you live, or I suppose you're listening to a recording, but we're live here at the CISI conference in the UK, outside of London in Surrey. And Kameka and I met last night at a wine tasting, which was a lot of fun. Though you were not tasting wine, I was tasting wine, perhaps a little bit too much wine. And you're one of the speakers here at the conference. And I so enjoyed our discussion last night that I thought it'd be great fun to have you on the podcast. And so let's go ahead and kick off. Tell us just a little bit about yourself.
As Matthew have stated, I'm Kameka McLean. I have been in HR for over 20 years.
Sure.
Actually, it's a funny story how I started out. So basically, I actually accompanied my aunt to a job, the first day on the job. She was actually going to be a cleaner.
Really?
And whilst I was there, I met this really nice gentleman in the lift. And I said to him, "How are you today? Are you all right? You look a little bit frustrated."
Yeah.
And he said to me, "Oh, someone was meant to show up for an interview, but they didn't." And he was like saying to me, "You're polite, you're really nice. Why don't you come for the role?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "What sort of job is it?" I was 16 years old at the time. And he said to me, "An administrative role.
Sure.
I need someone to look after our people."
Okay.
So I said, "Okay, sign me up. When can I do the interview?"
Yeah.
And he said to me, "What about now?" And I did the interview and got offered that role. And that's how I started out in HR.
Wow.
Developed myself from then, go to university as well. I did things backwards.
Sure,
From someone coming from Jamaica to the UK,
Yeah.
it was a big, massive transition for me.
I bet.
So the plan that my parents had did not work out.
Sure.
I knew what I wanted to be. I wanted to be the first person to attend university in my family. I wanted to break that negative cycle,
Sure.
Be in a reputable position so that my children has someone to look up to and something to look forward to in life instead of like poverty. So with my determination, my sass, and my beauty, of course. I started developing myself education-wise. I did psychology, I did sociology, associate degree. Then I did a degree in law and then human resources management. And I just, I have two children. I started quite young in my parenting days, not by choice, but there you go. But it's the best thing that has happened to me. My kids are grown, they're adults now. My son is in university studying economics. I've been married for almost 21 years now. And yes, that's a bit about me. From a professional perspective, I deal in change and transformational projects.
Okay.
And more so DE&I, or organization, because I am a person of color, right? I always impose DE&I strategy because I believe when individual have different culture, different values, they come together and create this beautiful concoction of different ideas. And, that's where I focus myself in DE&I and also transition individual from hire to retire and looking at the entire employment life cycle.
Yeah, what I so enjoyed about our discussion, because I know that DEI can often be controversial, that can be a heated topic for some people, it's often misunderstood. When we spoke last night, you spoke about that it's actually often, the studies have shown that companies that are more diverse end up being more profitable, and that what often can sometimes happen if someone feels that they're only checking a box to meet these quotas or whatever the word may be, that's actually doing a disservice to everyone. So I would love your thoughts. How do we all work together to empower an industry that's not very diverse, right? Historically, financial services, and even to this day, is not very diverse. How do we work together in a way that's empowering and not making one group or another feel like they're somehow in trouble or they're checking a box?
I'm quite passionate about that. And I so appreciate this opportunity to talk about this as well, because not everyone is as open-minded as yourself. So thank you for that. I would say the most important thing for anyone who wants to be an inclusive leader or who wants to implement DE&I strategy within their organization, first and foremost, you need to look at the law that governs this principle. It's very, 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 very important. Look at the protective characteristics in those those rules. They exist for a reason. It tells a story. And I think a lot of people does not realize, when you look at the American history, when you look at Martin Luther King Jr. and his speech about equality, etc., why did he do that? Because there was a deficit in
Incredible.
treatment.
Yes.
So the law exists because there's a deficit in treatment of certain individuals in different groups. So I would say you cannot fix all at once. But if you align your goals and principles as to what you want to achieve, you are well versed with the protective characteristic. I would say take each turns, take one at a time. You know, in the UK, currently I'm working for WCG, Walker Cripps Group, PLC. And what I've focused on for the last year of being in Walker Cripps is looking at ethnicity and improving those numbers. Not just black and white, because a lot of people think it's about black and white, male and female. It's not just about that. It's about, yes, ethnicity is about individuals, you know, who do not have the opportunity within the normal organizational structure or educational structure, reaching out to those individuals because they have life skill and life experience, right? Because for you to reach at university like myself, you know, as I told you my story, the first one to go to university, for someone to overcome that barrier, and that's most of the story for most Black people, especially those who travel from the Caribbean. I don't know how much you know about the Windrush generation, that scandal, everything else. We are tied and bound to do certain things and involved in certain areas of society. So as an organization, we decided to focus on ethnicity. And by focusing on ethnicity, we meet our quota by attracting younger generation. We started the graduate program. That was one of the first things that we do so that we can bring young and fresh minds into the business. And within just that one thing that we decided to do, we hire a female graduate person who, as you know, in financial planning, I think it's 15% of women represent the industry. So you see that deficit there.
Incredibly.
And within that also, creating affiliation with universities, not top-notch university, but universities where, you can service the needs of each other and actually tap into their diverse talent. It's not about black and white. It's about different country, different culture, celebrating that tapestry of what it is to be an inclusive leader, to be an inclusive organization. And he asked me a wide question because
yes, of course.
At the end of the day, also, Matthew, we need to think about the fact that we need to develop these people. We need to celebrate our differences. How do we do that? Okay, the first thing you need to do, I always recommend, have an employee survey. You can get it. You can do it through Google. You can do it through your HRIS system. See how your employees are feeling, what they want to do, what ideas they have. Because inclusivity and being an inclusive leader is not just about you and what you want and your organizational goals, but working collaboratively with all those individuals within your organization so that they can feel their thoughts and their plans are listened to, and also instrumenting that learning and developmental piece to get them from, starters, graduates, straight up to leaders. And I think that's more fundamental than anything else.
There's several things that you pointed out I thought were quite interesting. And it seems, and again, I would love your thoughts. Often, if we see a firm that's looking for a new advisor or anyone, they have sort of these traditional job listings, right? We need 10 years of experience. We need a college degree. And you kind of describe some of these as barriers, right? So I think we sort of unintentionally think of this sort of stereotypical job listing, right? The ideal candidate, 10 years experience, college degree. And I don't know that we necessarily think of, I've now filtered out an entire segment of the population. And again, as you point out, this isn't necessarily black or white or male or female. But if I've said I can only work with this group of people, I've filtered out a lot. So when we look for candidates for our company, we try to reduce those requirements, right? And I always question assumptions, right? Does someone having a college degree make them necessarily a better employee? Well, I suppose it depends on the role, but oftentimes not, right? Oftentimes we talk often about Elon Musk, right? Who immigrated from South Africa, right? No college degree. And so people can become brilliant without these things. And sometimes I think we do ourselves a disservice by saying, boy, we have to set these bars very high that no one can get over. But at the same point, I think, and you seem to be an example of this, this isn't about diluting the standard down either, right? We still want very talented, hardworking people. We're just not necessarily going to get hung up on, do they check this one box of a prestigious college degree?
Exactly. That's correct. That's correct. And this is why we talk about ethnicity in my current role in WCG, we also started a apprenticeship program.
Yes.
And these are individuals that don't want to go to university, but we will equip them with the right qualification and experience. And that should be open to anyone, not just from a diverse background, but from anyone who probably did not go to one of those top universities or top schools or private school, or we call them in the UK a grammar school. Just normal educational backgrounds, no private school. This is open to those individuals. And I think that's the start. And I will suggest this to any organization. Tap into your apprenticeship program. In the UK, you're rewarded, Matthew, for that. You can gain qualification from the CISI, through universities, degrees, through an apprentice program. And it costs most organizations 10% of what it costs for a degree, or free. And I think a lot of people does not tap into that opportunity. And those exist just to clear the barriers of equal opportunities, employments, and giving people more opportunities. That is why the government lay out those initiatives. So I just think that tap into what support the government has in place.
Sure.
Bring that over to your organization. It's good for you as well because you get apprenticeship status. You can be a training organization if you sign up to the apprenticeship training program, and you can offer work experience for different schools within the borough, within London. So we've tapped into all of that at WCG just to make sure that we give each individual the opportunity and remove barriers that would never been given to them before.
Oh, I think that's delightful. Well, and employee development is so critical. Often I speak with advisors, especially advisors in smaller firms, and they think I can only hire someone who has this enormous skill set, right? A deep background in financial services. But as your very first employer saw, as you shared, really what we're looking for is people that have the right attitude, the right drive, the personal skills, and then we can teach them everything else, right? And so I always often mention to advisors, don't necessarily look for someone who has a deep background in financial services. Sure, that may be ideal. But if you meet someone anywhere, right, that your first employer met you in the lift, right, and they have the attitude and the mindset that you want, you can teach them all the technical skills. And though, to your point, you do need to teach them, right? They won't learn it magically. They won't learn it just by sitting there. But there are so many opportunities, this podcast being one, to help team members develop. And I've always found, and I know this feels cliche to say, but I've always found that the more I invest in my team, the more they invest in me in return. And so while I love my team and I take good care of them and all my teams, and just every dollar I spend in their development is $10 that comes back to me. But sometimes we miss that. So how do you help employers see that this isn't an expense, this isn't a sacrifice, this is really, it's a good business decision?
Exactly. It's an investment.
It is.
That's what it is.
It is an investment.
Because I'm HR, I can answer that question perfectly for you. And I will try and tell you what I've done in the past.
Sure.
So as you know, within the UK, the Equalities Act existed or was perfected in 2010, right?
Okay, yeah.
But I did not see much momentum until after what happened in America with George Floyd, when everyone took to the street to demonstrate about equal opportunity, rights and justice, etc. And I felt that was a little bit hypocritical, to be honest. I'm just going to be straight, because I'm saying, why now that something happened in a country 1,000 miles away, that you are now taking action? I alone have been doing this in my organization for a very long time. So how dare you now say, okay,
now
we
it's
need
okay.
to come on the bus now, it's fine. Hi, you waved me past by before and didn't care about it, but now you care about it all of a sudden. And that's where we go wrong.
Yes.
You don't jump on a bandwagon, as us Jamaican and British people would say. You buy into an idea, and that is how it is with training.
Interesting.
You have to buy into the ideas, show values. What I've done in the past is, okay, you have an issue. Remember, I say I do change and transformation, right?
Yes.
And I normally go into companies that has a higher attrition rates. People are not managed properly, performance appraisal issues. It is not the right policies and procedures. So I would say 4 things. Have the right policies and procedure in place, have the right succession planning exercise in place, and align that with the strategic objectives of the business and where you want to go from a people perspective. Manage the end-to-end cycle of your individuals so that you can track your MI reporting, cut your promotional, matrix within the last few years, are people still leaving?
Sure.
And I spoke about staff survey, hearing what's going on the ground, right? Once you put all that together, it does tell a story, because matrix index does not lie. So what I normally do, I will go to the board. Okay, I've done a report into how people are feeling from a developmental perspective.
Yeah.
I'm looking at succession planning
Yeah.
within the organization, and it's non-existent. No one understands how to move from A to B.
Yeah.
So we need to remedy that. We need to put a policy and processes in place to, regulate that area so that people can see, how you step up. Okay, what do we need for each, roles within the organization? Okay, if you're going to be a normal junior staff, you need communicational skills, get a good LMS system that has those mini training courses that are very efficient and very effective when it comes to, communicational skills, when it comes to Excel's training and learning. Yeah. Just define each area and each element of the role and how those individuals progress through the organization. Have affiliation to CISI, because CISI offer the IAD and the IOC training, equip individual with those, level of understanding and qualification as well.
Sure.
And, once you understand your organization, what they want to achieve, you look at your matrix that tells your story. Yeah. I think that's a very good business case to say, listen, we need to invest in these individuals because they're performing excellently. They're top performers within the organization for the last 2-3 years. What we're doing, we can't waste this talent. Yeah. We need to put time and effort into this person. We need to develop them more. And that takes, money to do so.
It does.
And it saves you money. And a lot of people does not know that.
No, because if you lost that talent,
exactly, you're going to have to pay a recruitment cost for that person. And also you might not even get it at the price that it was before because this market is unpredictable.
It's so competitive. Yeah, it's very difficult.
There you go.
Kameka, you mentioned some concerns with people that we would say bandwagoned in. What are some other things that we can watch out for, right? Where people may think they're being helpful, but it's actually not, it's not helpful. Right. So again, if we look at financial services, historically, it's not a very diverse group. And so I think there's definitely a lot of people in the industry that want to be helpful, but sometimes they go the wrong direction. There was even a gentleman last night that was telling us a story, and I won't repeat his name or his story. And I thought, I don't know that this story is helpful for the situation. It's sort of like he seemed to be lecturing you about how this should work. But just any kind of advice you can give, things that are helpful to improve diversity in the industry and things that might seem helpful, like jumping on the bandwagon that may not in fact be helpful. So just any kind of thoughts or advice you have there.
I would say first and foremost, right, you need to have empathy. Yeah? Because when you have empathy and you understand human beings and their experience, then it's more, you can comment more on circumstances around those individuals. I would always say, take self out of it, right? Not selfless, but do not be selfish in the sense, pretend that something happened or someone says something untoward to yourself that does not sit right to you. You imagine the worst conversation that's ever taken place. And, just look at it from that person's perspective. You have to have empathy to fully understand DE&I. Right? You have to understand that I never said sympathy, but empathy. You need to put yourself into that person's position.
Interesting.
You need to challenge where you see inequality in your workplace. Be that force, be that resilient force that say, okay, we need to change this because we are the same people with the same culture doing the same thing. How do we diversify this? What do we need to do, to diversify our team? A lot of people would say, okay, I track my DE&I, I advertise. Please do not put, we want a person of color or a diverse on a job description. Please, I ask you. That is very unprofessional and off-putting. It's not nice, right? I would say if you want to attract those individuals, I am not sure about the US, but in the UK, you can go on Diverse Job Matters. You can advertise your roles there. You can advertise your roles and Black women in HR, investing in women. You can advertise your role there. Disability.UK, you can advertise jobs to attract different talent. Use the resources that already exist to attract the right people within your organization and just be yourself. Challenge, without being unapologetic in that sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate the advice of please don't list that you're looking for a certain amount of diversity, right? That's not certainly helpful for everybody. Talk a little bit about the empathy when we're at events like this, right? So we're at this beautiful conference that CISI has put on. It's at a beautiful location, very lovely people. How do we express that empathy, or how does that work in this type of setting, right? So I show up at the conference and it's a great group. But what recommendations do you have? And again, if we're looking at this whole spectrum, and I know Professor Steve talked yesterday about neurodiversity, and he said everyone is different. Everyone is diverse from a neurological standpoint. How do we make that a more welcoming environment for someone who maybe, for example, does not have a college degree, or it's their first time attending an event, or they walk into a room and they think, no one here is like me for whatever reason? What thoughts or recommendations do you have there?
I would say my recommendation is, if, look around in the room, and if you do see someone struggling or not talking to anyone, go up, as we done yesterday, and say, hello, how are you? Introduce yourself. We're in an open forum with a lot of people. Walk around the room, say hello. And I would say, instead of looking at neurodiversity as a challenge, celebrate it.
Yes.
I am neurodiverse. I'm ADHD. I am dyslexic and skeptopic sensitivity. So there you go. If I never told you that, you would never have known.
No, I wouldn't have.
But I would say, be comfortable in yourself. Do not. I think it becomes stressful when you think about all of this. Oh my God, how do I be diverse? What if I say something out of turns to this person? This is a person of color. I don't know how to behave. Be yourself. Be respectful, understanding, and do not overthink things, because it's not good for your well-being.
Well, I appreciate you owning, I guess, labels, for lack of a better term. So my middle daughter is quite dyslexic. And for a long time, we didn't know that she had dyslexia, right? Because there's not a sign for someone that's dyslexic, right? And so she struggled terribly in school. And the teachers would just say, well, there's something wrong with you. You're not smart. You need to stand from recess. And then when we discovered that she was struggling with dyslexia, and then we could introduce her to other successful people. In fact, she'll actually be here at the conference later today. I would love to introduce her to you. It was so empowering for her to say, wait, we all have this perfect image, but we're all struggling with different things. And dyslexia is quite common. And so she was able to see all these successful people that are also dyslexic, and was able to understand that this isn't something that's right or wrong. It's just your brain works a little bit differently. You look at books differently than I look at books, and that's wonderful. And I love that you pointed that out, that part of that is just embracing. I think we live in this sort of social media world where everybody has to have this perfect image, and we're not that way at all. And we can either share that and embrace it with each other, or try to hide from it, and it creates shame and guilt and all these other things.
Exactly. This is slightly off topic.
Please.
It's about depression. No one knows that cloak of depression. So I would say, the way there's a lot of emphasis on depression at the moment, you need to have emphasis on, neurodiversity, what is going through other people's minds. Someone might be a bit eccentric, but there might be a reason for it. It might be a disability that, and we need to stop judging people by our own standards as well, because we're all individuals.
Yeah, but now we go down a whole path as well, right? How closely are you checking on your team's mental well-being, right? Are those check-ins, is it just the measurement of what was your performance, or are we seeing how is this person well-rounded? I think there's this sort of misnomer of a work-life balance, but there is no line between those, right? We have life, and work is part of that. And the people that we work with, we often spend more time with them than even our family, even our closest relationships. And so, it's so critical. I think, as you point out, there's a great observation. There's not a sign that says I'm depressed or disabled or anything. There's not a sign for that, but we're all struggling with different things.
Definitely. I don't know if you had a chance to check out my profile, but my company was awarded Best Wellbeing Initiative.
Really?
And I would touch on that just a little bit. So within any organization, I think it's quite important to understand the importance of promoting. And I see that you've done that, with how you schedule your meeting and spending time with family. I like that ethos and business, and how it transpired down into your organization, paying £1,000 if you stay over a minute. That is brilliant. If we have more leaders like yourself, I think we will avoid burnt out and mental health issues. But you can't always, because we're a concoction of beautiful minds.
Yes, we are.
You can't, it doesn't matter how perfect a situation is. It is unavoidable that, you will meet depression in the future for someone.
Yes.
So I would say, be prepared, put the right support in place. We use EAP, Employee Assisted Program.
Sure, yes.
I know Americans company that I've worked with in the past, we've enrolled them on that. It does cost money.
Sure.
But as I say, would you prefer a healthy workforce or more revenues Because I think if you invest in your employees, you get more out of them
always
and
get
more,
yes.
Exactly, and more revenues. So, a culture where you can have open and honest discussion. I always have an open door policy. You can approach me, you can talk to me about anything that you want to. You can even ask me anything because I'm like that. I'm very upfront and a blunt person who will ask anyone anything and tell them why I've asked them. So I think it's good to practice that, just putting those support in place, an open door policy, and knowing your employee, I can tell when someone is not all right. So analyze people, observe to see what's going on in their head. Did they make a mistake? Did something happen today that never happened before? And approach them, And I think it's very important that you have mental health first aiders within the organization as well. That really helps because they can diagnose any such issue and, just have a policy. You can talk to me about anything. And I think you'll be surprised what people comes out with and what they share with yourself.
Kameka, what would you recommend for smaller organizations? So a lot of planners are perhaps 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe 5 people, and they don't have an HR person, right? And they don't have a whole department for that. Thoughts on how to get support for that group, or even for the advisors themselves, right? It's often a very lonely profession. It's you, and you're trying to run this, and you have 2 team members, and you're just trying to keep the whole thing going. Thoughts or support that's existing for that in that kind of situation?
I would say always have a positive mindset. Right?
Love it.
Because you can be bogged down by all of your problems. You need to step away from a situation when it's becoming too onerous, right? You don't want the floodgates to be breaking. When you do mental health training, you have this thing that's called stress container. So a stress container is, family life, work-life balance, being a father, being a mother, being a aunt, uncle like me. I'm everything in my family. I'm the go-to person. So it can become overwhelming. So you need to know your triggers. When you're feeling like, this is a bit too much for me, I can't cope anymore, do not continue doing that. Come out of that situation, go play your golf, go watch a film or something, but step out of that situation because the more you feed it, the more you're going to feel worse. So step outside of it. You need to be able to step outside of your circumstances, look at it, analyze it. Should I really be feeling this way? If this is the way I'm going to feel every day, should I be doing this really? Am I doing this correctly? Or do I need help and support? Does someone have a better idea of how to do this? You need to question and challenge yourself to evolve and work. Because as you see the evolution of human being, we will continuously evolve around time. So what's wrong with us evolving our ethics or works and looking after our mental well-being?
Well, that makes so much sense. And it seems in the moment with the stress container, that never seems to be the urge, right? We almost always seem to, if I'm stressed by something, I almost just want to, my impulse is to double down on it. But I love your point about if this is causing me stress, I need to step away. I'm probably not being productive in that situation, be it work or my family or my kids. And so instead of trying to dig deeper into it, we've got to take a step away from that. And as you said, whether it's going to the gym or reading a book or going to a conference, whatever you need to be in a healthier situation. Any other parting thoughts or action items for our audience? If they were going to if they listen to this episode and they said, well, I'm really inspired, what's something they could go out and do and implement in their practice or in their life right away, even this week? What would be something you could recommend?
I would say, and I have 2 favorite saying, right? I would say, no one is you, and that is your power. Or say to yourself, no one is me, and that is my power. And that means you have the power to react or not to react. You have the power to hurt someone or not hurt someone. You have the power to be positive. You have the power to be negative. You control your circumstances and your situation. It's how you react to it, right? My other favorite saying is, nothing is impossible. The word impossible means I am possible, right? So I am possible to overcome my challenges and my circumstances. I am possible to see when someone is struggling and helping those individuals within their struggle. And I am possible, to make a change in DE&I, to educate people, to let them know that, well-being should be at the forefront of everything that you do. We are selfish human being, but we're selfish in the wrong way. Be selfish with your mental health. Put yourself and your needs first and take yourself out of certain situation that you have no business being in, or as we call it, wallowing in self-pity. Take yourself out of that. Just say, I am strong. I can do this. I will overcome this. This is going to be my story where I succeed.
Wow, I love it. Those are great quotes. No one is me, and that is my power. Nothing is impossible. In fact, it's always I'm possible. I love it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for being such a great guest. How can people learn more about you and your work? How can they find you online and whatnot?
Right. So you can find me on LinkedIn, and I do have a Limited I, Let's Start Diversity and Inclusion page on LinkedIn as well. So you can find me there.
Very good. Thank you again so much. And for all of our listeners, until next time, happy planning.
This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA